Alright, what's up everyone, I'm Faloki, and the NFL Draft is here. 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The NFL Draft will be kicking off, and the first round will be going on today, but it doesn't really matter for the Seahawks. We don't have a first round pick. It really all matters how the board continues to fall after the first round going into the second round. However, yesterday, something very interesting happened. The pre-draft press conference with Pete Carroll and John Schneider happened, and they were going off about how Russell Wilson wasn't going to be traded because about 99% of the questions were about Russell Wilson and that whole fiasco that we had throughout the offseason. And they basically just continued to clear up. Russell Wilson was never really being traded. There was really never any negotiations, which everyone kind of knew. So that's not what I'm going to be focusing on today. I'm going to be focusing on what could have implications further on down the line from this press conference. And that's KJ Wright. There was a very interesting question asked about KJ Wright, and everyone knows KJ Wright has not had the market that people thought he was going to have. So that definitely opens up the possibility that the Seattle Seahawks can bring back KJ Wright. Maybe a one-year deal, let him prove himself going to free agency next year when the money's a lot better. You know, there's a lot of possibilities here. But when asked about KJ Wright in the pre-draft press conference, both Pete Carroll and John Schneider had some pretty good things to say when it comes to the position that we're in to maybe get KJ Wright back. And because the Seattle Seahawks are an absolutely amazing organization and they don't copyright every single thing they do with press conferences, we're going to take a look at what they actually said. No way to skew their words here. We are going to listen to exactly what the question is and exactly what both men responded with.
For either of you guys, did you guys have conversations with KJ Wright's people about bringing him back at all during free agency?
Yeah, I get it. Go ahead. So, yeah, we talked to KJ's people before free agency, but quite frankly, there were so many coaches on our staff that are, that were on our staff that are at different places. We thought he would be signed by now, and you have the draft coming up. There's several different phases. We look at it in free agency. There's several different phases to it. We look at this being what we call phase 2, which is right around draft time. And so I think a lot of teams are going to see what they do in the draft, and then kind of come around to some of these veterans that are still available in free agency. We have the utmost amount of respect for him. He's done a ton for this organization. He's a great person, great leader. But yes, I mean, we have been in contact. I know Pete met with him.
All right, so then I believe it goes to Pete Carroll. And basically what John Schneider was saying was, yes, of course, they talked to them. They wanted to bring him back. It seems like they didn't really want to pay him the money that he wanted, especially in such a weird year when it comes to money in this offseason because of what happened last year. So a lot of things went wrong for the whole KJ Wright situation trying to bring him back. And then he talked about how there's multiple phases to kind of free agency and signing people. There's before the draft where you get the big signings, then after the draft where the good veterans that did not get the interest that they should have are going to go. KJ Wright is going to get signed. There is absolutely no world in which KJ Wright does not get signed by a team. It's just going to happen after the draft, after teams are like, okay, maybe we don't really have the linebackers necessary to go into next season. Let's pick up a KJ Wright on a one-year deal. And I think the Seahawks, they don't really have the linebackers necessary to go into next season, especially compared to what they had last year having KJ Wright. Bringing KJ Wright back would be absolutely amazing for the Seahawks, and that's something that's going to happen after the draft, but I assume a lot of teams are going to want KJ Wright, so the Seahawks are going to have to make some actions quick after the draft if they want to bring back KJ Wright. But let's get into what Pete Carroll had to say.
Yeah, I had a really good sit down with them just the other day to bring it all together, where we're coming from. We needed to hear where he's coming from.
All right, before he gets back into that, that's good news. The fact that they've talked to him recently. He said, in the past few days, I think he said something about he talked to him recently, and that is great because keeping in contact with the guy means that the Seahawks want to get him. So the Seahawks haven't given up on KJ Wright, and of course, a lot of fans really like KJ Wright. I'd love to have him back, especially on a one-year deal, maybe even a multi-year deal, but at least a one-year deal so he can stay in a scheme that he knows, do well with the team that he knows, and then next year, if he wants to go and get his money, I would 100% respect that, but I would love to have him back, and it's really good to hear that they've been talking to him recently.
And talk about the future and what's possible moving forward. So we're right on nose to nose on this deal, and like John said, KJ's been one of the classiest players you could ever expect to have in your program, and been a fantastic player. And so the door is not closed to us of what we're doing moving forward.
All right. So I may be going a bit too far in here. Of course, he said the door's not closed to what they're doing going forward. But before that, he said we're nose to nose on this deal. Maybe that's poor wording, or maybe they're already negotiating a contract or negotiating a deal to bring KJ Wright back. I may be overthinking it. Maybe Pete Carroll used the wrong word. But when he says they're nose to nose in this deal, that to me sounds like they're negotiating. But that's just me.
So we're very clear about that and feel really good about where we are with Cage.
All right, and that ends it for the actual thing where they talked about KJ Wright. And from that, you can definitely tell that there is a good possibility that KJ Wright will be getting signed back to the Seahawks. Now, of course, not guaranteed, because other teams definitely need linebackers, and KJ Wright is one of, if not the best linebackers still on the market. He is an absolutely amazing veteran. He's a great person, great team player, and he is just an amazing player himself. He makes plays. He's great for the locker room. Just there's really nothing more that you could want in a veteran linebacker, so there's going to be teams that are interested. It's really just a matter if the Seahawks go hard enough to actually get him after the draft. This is something that's going to happen soon. I believe also later in the press conference, they mentioned a little bit about how they still have a few additions that they want to bring in when it comes to signing people after the draft. And they said they want to do that in the next few days. So this next week might be very important for seeing who the Seahawks bring back to fill in needs, or bring in to fill in needs, like veteran-wise. Obviously, bringing back KJ Wright would be huge, but maybe you're bringing in some veteran corners, something like that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few days, but from what they said here about KJ Wright seems like he may be coming back to the Seahawks. At least the Seahawks have the interest in bringing him back. It seems like they've been talking, and it seems like, just from what I heard from the nose-to-nose on the deal thing, seems like they may be negotiating something. But that's just me. I might be looking too far into it. Really, this whole press conference was just a bunch of questions about Russell Wilson, and of course, it makes sense for the media to ask that just to get everything cleared up, because Pete Carroll said something about how he and Russell Wilson kind of agreed to stay quiet on it so that nothing could be taken out of context. So them staying quiet obviously led the media to just go completely crazy with it, but now clearing it up is probably a good idea. But overall, this press conference was mainly about Russell Wilson, but the things that they talked about other than him, like KJ Wright, signing some veteran guys after the draft, very interesting to see what they were saying. I would love to have KJ Wright back. Of course, KJ Wright, he's going to need to make his money soon, so I don't think we're going to get him more than a one-year deal. I don't think we'll be able to lock him up for the rest of his career on something relatively cheap. He's going to get a one-year deal with whatever team he signs to, most likely, and he's going to play really well and they get money next year, unless the team's willing to offer him a lot of money on a multi-year deal after the draft, but that's probably unlikely. But let me know down below in the comments if you'd like to get KJ Wright back. Do you think the Seahawks will actually go and try and get KJ Wright back because of what these guys, Pete Carroll and John Schneider, ended up saying about the situation? Like I said, let me know down below in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.